we raised the rates way too high, a lot higher than we had to. And my opinion is we should return the rates, or reduce the rates, not continue to keep the rates there so we can buy vehicles.
Again, the recommendation for town meeting is to borrow.
I understand.
I don't see it necessarily as keeping the rates high to buy vehicles.
Well-
I say keeping the rates where they are in order to maintain the system and operating it, which includes the vehicles which are utilized by the water department, which we have been curtailing the purchase of these things for a number of years because the balance in that fund has been so low. In addition to that, we pay from the other funds that we borrowed from in order to make up the difference. Again, it's still only been the first year here, so, wherever we end up, but depending upon the weather and everything else. But, to me, water revenue should be paying for water department,
Yeah.
water enterprise fund should be paying for the equipment to operate the water department, so. And if we don't have sufficient funds to do that, as we haven't had in the past, free cash, has supported the borrowings. So,
To borrow money to get a vehicle is very inexpensive.
I'm sorry?
Borrowing money for vehicles is very, very cheap right now.
Right.
I'd rather not spend the cash.
Right, oh, right, so we're in agreement, it's just a question of where are you gonna pay the bill, in other words, how are you gonna make the payment? You
That's
don't
a
wanna, you're
different
saying
story.
you don't wanna pay it from the water enterprise fund.
Oh, he's saying he doesn't wanna take the whole amount
Right.
in 1 year out of the water enterprise.
That's right, that's what I'm saying.
He doesn't mind borrowing and paying
I don't
out of
mind
the
borrowing.
enterprise
Borrowing.
for a number of years.
I was saying, the decision I'm talking about, the one-time payment,
Thank you.
that's a year down the road.
Yeah, not this year.
That's not
No,
this year.
You gotta borrow.
That's a year down, we're borrowing.
We're
We're
borrowing this.
borrowing, we do a temporary borrowing.
Yep.
And then a year from now, or in 14 months, we'll do a permanent borrowing. And at the time we do a permanent borrowing, we'll assess what our cash situation is in the water fund.
Okay.
And we'll make a recommendation to the board. We do a permanent borrowing for 5 years, or we fund it from cash.
Okay.
That's our decision for today, though.
That, I believe that's the issue Mr. Briscoe picked up on, was a year from now, what's going to happen?
Yeah,
Is
well
it
then-
permanent borrowing, or is it gonna be paid from free cash? That's the issue, not the initial borrowing from the band.
Thank you.
Can I, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Fode, sure.
I just have one question. Do you know where we stand right now with water?
You mean in terms of what the surplus is?
Yes.
Last time we checked, we were about $240,000 to the good.
And if I recall, when the rates were put in place, the intent was to try and collect,
270.
I don't think it was that
I
much.
have it in front of
I
me.
thought it was to put, do you remember, Steve, was it to put 200,000?
I thought it was 180.
180.
180 back?
180,
One back
No.
into what MTBE and
Right.
Stickney year.
180.
180 was the full
But,
number.
but that was to pay that back, plus continue to have a reserve.
Right,
in it. So it was the 180 to pay back what was
Right, the
borrowed
goal
from
was
the other
minimally
accounts.
180.
To pay those accounts
then
back, and
decide
then
what you
still,
gotta do.
then start building your reserves.
Operate back
So if you're at
everything else.
240 and you pay back the 180, you've got
No, no,
another,
I understand.
you've got another
No.
$60,000 now.
Well, was it $500,000 was taken
I
out?
thought it was
I think the plan was
100,000 a
180,
year.
180, paying back the 100
That's right,
per year for 5 years.
for 5 years.
So,
And
we're
then the
banking
80
on having
was
the eight.
retained earnings.
Right.
That's how I understood it. So, I thought at the time, and I wasn't part of that, I was in the water commission, I thought at the time, though, if it was anything over that amount, you would decide what you're gonna do with it as far as moving forward, if you're gonna put it into retained earnings or not.
Mr. Misery.
The issue that we face with the water revenue is that it's a function of the season. So it appears that based on last summer, that it was optimum for raising revenue. I mean, bringing in additional revenue. So we're probably collecting more this year than we would on an average year. The idea was to set the rate such that, A, we paid back what was taken out of those two capital funds over the next 5 years, sooner if possible. The rest would stay in a retained earnings with the hope that, with the anticipation if we had a slow year, in other words, revenue was down, we had enough to cover it without tapping our capital funds or raising the water rates again. Now, obviously, we're not even into a year here, we're into half a year's worth of experience, and as a result, it's gonna take a couple of years before we get a sense of where that's going. And then we can adjust it accordingly.
Anything further from the board on Article 9? Anything?
Who's doing it, Steve?
Never got there yet.
Oh,
Want
okay.
to sit in?
No, I'm just asking, I'm just trying to keep up with you.
Anything from the public? Hearing none. Mr. O'Leary, you mind taking Article 9?
I'd be happy to, yeah.
Trouble.
Article 10.
Article 10 is fund retirement obligations. These are amounts that contractually the town is obligated to pay retiring school and municipal employees. The amount that's requested is $250,000, and we will seek to raise and appropriate these monies. So these are within our revenue plan as raise and appropriate.
Board members? Any comment? No? Any comment from the public? No? Mr. O'Leary, would you mind taking 3 in a row?
Sure.
Okay. Article 11.
Transferring monies to the solid waste stabilization fund. Typically, what we do is we will ask DPW to look at the solid waste account and determine if there is to be any surplus in the budget, and we will return these monies to the solid waste stabilization fund. Again, keep in mind that the solid waste account is a fee, based upon fees. At this time, we do not have any monies to be able to transfer.
Anything from
Are
the
we
board?
passing over this?
Yes, we'll be passing over this article.
Mr. Misery?
Yeah.
Article 12.
Article 12 is to appropriate monies to the stabilization fund, and we will recommend that this be a passover.
Two easy ones.
All right.
Article 13.
Article 13 is adding monies to our other post-employment benefits liability trust fund, as you heard our auditor address this evening. We'll recommend that this be passed over. Again, Article 12 and 13 were put in as placeholders. Typically, what we'd want to do is look to fund those at October town meeting after we have free cash certified, and as we get closer to setting our tax rate.
Mr. Misery, 3 passovers. You need a break, so
All
that's
right.
fine. Article 14.
Article 14 is to increase demand fees in accordance with General Law, Chapter 60, Section 15. The statutory maximum that you can go to is $30 for issuance of demands. It takes a vote of town meeting to do it. Presently, we're at $5 per demand, and the intent of this is to cover our costs in issuing those demands and collecting on those amounts.
Clarify, the rate that we're asking is what?
$30.
$30.
$30.
Going from 5 to 30.
Marion, could you just cite the examples that this happens, demands for?
Real estate, personal property, motor vehicle, and water, we don't put demands on it because we charge them the $5 service fee.
Mr. Misery.
Just a question. Someone doesn't pay their water bill, right? And you send out a late payment notice,
We do send out delinquency notices.
and they pay the bill. So they just pay the interest charge, or they pay this
Yes.
demand?
No, water, we do not charge a demand on because
Well, I
we have.
picked a bad example.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Say
Motor vehicle
excise.
excise.
Motor vehicle
Motor
excise is
Motor
classic.
vehicle excise.
If it goes on demand, we actually send the payment back because we cannot take partial payments on motor vehicle. So if they sent in the bill and it had demand and interest, we send out the bills and it crossed in the mail, we will send the bill back to them and with the printout saying that they now owe an additional $5 and some odd cents, and, because we can't take partial payments on the bills, so we will send the bills back to them.
No, that's not my point. My point is, it's past due.
Yep.
You send out a notice,
Yes.
they pay the bill, they forgot to pay it. So-
We will send them another reminder that they still owe $6.51 because it was a $5 demand plus the interest because they did not pay that portion, so we do send them another bill for that portion.
Yeah, they get this fee if they forget to
So
pay
they
the
get the $30 if
They-
they're late.
Yeah,
Yes,
And
they
you
will
sent-
get the $30.
not yet.
Okay. I think it's a little steep.
So currently, again, if I owed $50 on an excise tax bill and I was late, I paid the $50, but I was late. You took my 50. You don't, you send me back the $50 and you say you now owe me $56.61,
Correct.
plus a
Motor-
$30 fee.
No.
Right,
Is there a
motor vehicles-
$5 fee currently on that?
Yes.
Yes, $5 fee on everything.
Motor vehicle is different than real estate and personal property. We can't take partial payments for motor vehicle. But
Okay,
if you sent in your real estate bill thinking it was $50, but you were late and it was really $55 or $56 and change, we would take the $50, but then you'd get a bill for the $6 and change.
Like, we just sent out the demands for the real estate, and there was over 500 bills that we sent out.
and some of those were partial.
Correct.
And
Why,
currently, they get charged $5 on
Correct.
that, and you're looking to bring it up to $30.
Yes.
So under that scenario,
Mr. Prisco and Mr. Messeri.
they'd owe their $50 plus the 30 for the late fee plus
Plus
the
interest.
interest. That is kinda hefty.
What do you see that other communities are doing?
Some only went up $5 to $10, some jumped all the way up to $30. It just, it depends on what town. I looked at 3 or 4 different towns, and there was one that stayed the same, but then there was 2 that jumped up to $30. So it just depends on what the board recommends and what their, finance committee recommends.
What have we been running historically on the $5 fee income-wise? You know,
our
generally,
fees are
what do
way
we,
up.
huh?
How much
Fees are way up.
You know, how much is it generated? Because now we're talking about, all things being equal, 6 times that amount. Again, I understand we need to cover our costs, but any idea as to what we're generating in late fees?
Well, on average, like Mary Ann said, we're sending out, that was just real estate, was 500, properties that didn't pay. Motor vehicle, we send out a lot of demand bills.
There was over 1,000 bills we sent out. I think it was 1,000 or 1,300 that we sent out just in motor vehicle alone. And then.
So you're gonna go from
another-
$5,000 in income on the motor vehicle to $30,000 in income, additional income.
But I don't think they're doing it for the income. I mean,
No,
they're
no,
doing
well, I
it to
know we're not doing it
discourage.
for the income, we're doing it to help cover our costs.
Well, the $5 obviously hasn't gotten people's attention. They don't care about the
Right,
$5.
we're doing it for collection rates, because we're
Right.
not, fully collecting.
It gets their attention. I support. Yeah.
Just for real estate.
2,000, you gotta get 10,000, you gotta go to $60,000, so now just between those two, you're talking
Well-
about 90,000.
The demand's only for the final bill. So if they don't pay the first 3 quarters, it's not until they don't pay their 4th quarter.
Okay,
Then the demand goes
So
up.
it's
So
not
they only get
quarter-
charged the demand once.
Once.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's different.
Can we, can you do a graduated one whereby, I don't have a problem with a $30 fee on an unpaid real estate tax bill after 4 quarters not being paid. But on a $340 excise tax or a $240 excise tax or even less for an older vehicle, a $30 fee. It may be an attention grabber, but by the same token, the excise tax money that's collected by the town is really found money that we're not generating at all. It's just being generated through the registration of vehicles, which assists us in, meeting
Assists us by a
our
lot.
obligations.
That's our largest
Yeah.
local receipt.
Right, that's one of
Yes.
our largest local receipts, but we're not doing anything to generate that, we're not providing a service per se.
Oh, I would disagree, and I think
Yeah.
the DPW director would disagree in
Yeah.
terms of roads.
I understand it, but no, not as though we're earmarking all those funds that we collect for that
No, but it
towards-
goes in the general.
towards our roads and street and sidewalk maintenance either. If you were earmarking these funds, it's a different story. But anyway, could we charge,